Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's I, your reluctant gringo, and we are south of the border this on May 12th, 2025. So I hope everybody enjoyed their weekend. Everybody had a good Mother's Day weekend. I know we did here. And yeah, but we're back at it. It's another day in Trump land, and the news just keeps on coming. There's a lot, actually, when you start digging into the fine print of what's going on. Now, when you first read, this morning I got up and I was reading the headlines, and it didn't seem like a lot was going on. And I started digging in, trying to figure out what exactly was going on, what was being said. There's actually a lot. And if you're not paying attention to the details, you're missing. You're missing out. And you could be missing out on things that affect you positively. It could be things that affect you negatively. So we're going to get into it. We're going to start off with prescription drugs in a second because there was an executive order signed. And I've got a lot to say on this subject, believe me. I think most Americans do. I think a lot of people who take prescription medication in the United States do, especially if you've traveled to a foreign country and had to buy that same medicine in that foreign country. And you're like, really? That's all it costs? Well, President Trump signed a new executive order today. So let's actually take a look at that executive order just in brief here, because I love it. As soon as they sign it, it's up on the website. I love the transparency. No, I don't like all the executive orders you sign, don't get me wrong, but I love the transparency and that you actually have a president who talks every day to the media and answers questions. You may not like the answers, but at least he's talking to you. All right? At least he's talking to you. So let's transition out of this. Let's get there. All right, there we go. Okay. So this was signed this morning in the presence of RFK Jr., our Health and Human Service Secretary. Delivering most favored nation prescription drug pricing to American patients. That's a mouthful. What does that mean? Well, we all know prescription drugs cost a buttload in the United States, right? We all know that the minute a doctor writes us a prescription, we all get that gut feeling like, oh, crap, how much is this going to cost me? Hopefully my insurance covers it. Hopefully this. Well, and we all, not a lot of people like to take generic. Like listen, I'm an older guy, all right? I'm married to a wife who takes a prescription medicine. I take prescription medicines for certain things, right? If you've been with me long enough, you know that I do have a condition where I do have to take prescription medicine for the rest of my life. Well, that stuff gets expensive in the United States, even with insurance, okay? So what does this mean, pricing to American patients? American pharmaceutical companies spend millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars developing new drugs. Fair enough. That's what they do. Well, to recoup those costs, they charge Americans the most amount of money. But they want to be in the foreign markets and make that profit too. So what do? They offer those same drugs that we're paying tons of money for in the United States at hugely discounted prices. And we're going to take a look at a list of those. I found a really good article on a listing of some of the more recognizable prescription drug names that a lot of you are probably on. One of them I know this family takes. One of them I know my brother takes back in the United States. So I can't imagine how much he's paying for that one. And see exactly how much they cost in the United States, how much they cost in certain other countries, and how screwed you are getting as an American. And believe me, as an American with prescription drugs, look, Republican, Democrat, we can all agree on this. Americans are getting screwed 6 ways to Sunday on prescription medicine. All right. And just a side note, the easiest way to go from being okay financially in the United States to being bankrupt for years or in trouble financially for years is to have a health crisis, to have a health emergency, because healthcare just costs a lot, right? Never mind prescription drugs, we can get in the whole thing. But this is part of it, right? This is part of that problem. And at least we're going to try and do something about that problem. But what does the executive order exactly say? I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read a few key highlights if you'd indulge me here. So the purpose of this is that, here we go. The United States has less than 5% of the world's population and yet funds around 3/4 of global pharmaceutical profits. Imagine that. Almost 3/4 of the profits that pharmaceutical companies make come from the United States. But we only have 5% of the population. I'm sure there's plenty of other sick people out there in the world. In fact, I know it. This egregious imbalance is orchestrated through a purposeful scheme in which drug manufacturers deeply discount their products, and that's for sure because I'm going to show you some examples, to access foreign markets and subsidize that decrease through enormously high prices in the United States. Basically, they're making you pay the burden, folks, in the United States. And I know that because I get my prescription drugs down here in Mexico. By the way, pharmacies are everywhere. I love pharmacies down here. They're awesome. They're incredible. I'm going to get into that in a second. Pharmacies are great down here. Not only are they cheap, but you can get shit. First of all, prescription. They shouldn't even call it prescription drugs down here. You don't need no prescription down here. You just walk in. Just say, I want that. It's awesome. Okay, with maybe 5% of the drugs down here, you need a prescription because they're kind of controlled. But if you know the pharmacist, it's okay. All right, here we go. Americans should not be forced to, here's the policy. Americans should not be forced to subsidize low-cost prescription drugs and biologics in other developed countries. No, they shouldn't. And face overcharges for the same products in the United States. No, they shouldn't. All right? Americans must therefore have access to the most favored nation price for these products. All right? So what does that mean? Well, if we don't start getting favored nation prices, basically if we don't get the same prices or lowered prices or reasonable prices based off of what other countries are getting, he's probably going to regulate the shit out of the pharmaceutical companies, probably put tariffs. Maybe put tariffs on things, right? He loves that word, tariffs, regulations, right? Imports, exports. I'm sure he's got a boatload of tricks to do. Within 30 days of this date of this order, the Secretary shall, in coordination with the Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy, the Administrator for the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, and other relevant executive department and agency officials, communicate most favored nation price targets to pharmaceutical manufacturers to bring prices for American patients in line with comparable developed nations. Basically, they tell them, this is what you're going to charge Americans for this drug because this is what you're charging other people around the world. Or at least we're going to give you a reasonable, like, okay, we might not bring it down to the exact thing that you're selling it for in Costa Rica or Turkey, which, believe me, I mean, yeah, pharmaceutical companies would probably start laying people off and their profits take a dive. I get that. I don't want to see companies, but right now they're kind of gouging us, right? So they're going to say, hey, this is your target price. Get there. So they're going to make up all sorts of rules. They haven't put any teeth or consequences or too many restrictions here, but they will if they don't get what they want. So this executive order, I think it's a long time. But this is one of those executive orders I think we can all get behind and be like, hey, can we stop making friggin' medicine so expensive for people, right? We all heard the stories. People on Social Security, they got to make a choice. Do I buy my medicine this week or do I buy food? Do I buy my medicine this week or do I pay for heat? No one should have to make that choice. No American citizen should have to make that choice in the richest country in the world, all right? So we should make medicine affordable for everybody. Everybody. It shouldn't getting that type of medicine, getting life-saving medication or life-sustaining medication should not be a privilege. All right? It should not be a privilege in the United States of America, but it is right now. We're trying to change that. This executive order is going to try and change that. With that, let's take a look at this little report here. Now, this report is from the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation. All right. Again, when you start digging into reports and things like that, Health and Human Services reports, it's scary. Like, you can go to the Department of Defense and read the reports that they have for the money they're spending on the things that they're spending it on, and you'd be like, oh, that's kind of whack, right? And you kind of be like, all right, well, it's military. You kind of need some of this stuff, okay? Kind of don't wish we didn't spend so much money. But you kind of like, I'm okay with it, right? But then you get into like Health and Human Services, and you get into the health of the country, and like what the hell's really going on out there? Holy crap! There's some scary shit. But anyways, this is all about prescription drug pricing comparisons. Now, this report was created and then sent to Congress and sent to the desk of the Vice President and the President of the United States. So let's go. Here we go. Key findings. And that's all we're going to go over with this report is the key findings. I don't want to bore you by reading the whole report. I did. It's a lot. Okay. Here we go. Systematic comparisons of drug prices among countries are based on data from a broad set of drugs. So they didn't just go for one drug, two drugs, three drugs. They did a broad set of comparisons between what you pay in the United States and what you pay in other countries. Prices in the United States are higher than those in all comparison countries. This is the stuff that should piss you off if you're an American. And if you've had somebody in your family or you yourself are ill and need to spend money on drugs, on medicine, I should say. I wonder if the word drugs is really something I should really be saying. I try to use prescription meds as best as I could. Every time I say drugs, I think we're all taking something else. U.S. prices were 256% of those in 32 comparison countries combined. In comparison with individual countries, U.S. prices range from 170% of prices in Mexico, and I can vouch for that, and that's a minimum, all right, to 779% of prices in Turkey. All right. So there's a drug out there. There's plenty of medicines out there that if you pay whatever you pay in the United States, you're paying almost 800% more than what somebody is in Istanbul. That's insane. That's insane. There's something wrong with that. There's fundamentally wrong with that. The gap between U.S. prices and prices in other countries was larger for brand name originator drugs, basically brand name, non-generic, the regular stuff, right? We all heard, you want to go get Lipitor, you can't afford the Lipitor, so you get the generic, and hopefully it's the same thing, and hopefully it's supposed to be the same thing. But sometimes you react differently. It's not as effective. Let's face it, right? They always try to push the generic because they know it's cheaper. But sometimes you want the brand name. Like there's a medicine a member of my family takes that they need to take the brand name. They've tried taking generic, and the generic actually makes them sick, makes them feel ill, makes them feel nauseous. They take the regular one, boom, it works fine. Hey, I don't know how it works. I ain't a chemist. I ain't a biologist. I ain't a doctor. I'm just telling you what it is. So we have to end up buying the brand name. U.S. prices were 84% of prices in all non-U.S. countries for unbranded generics. So you're paying more for generics in this country too. So go figure. U.S. prices were 190% of prices in other countries after adjusting U.S. prices downward to account for rebates and other discounts. So even with rebates and discounts and all the deals you're getting and all the little apps you see on, you get these little apps, the RX this and blah, blah, blah. It'll make your drug, you're still paying more. You're still getting screwed 6 ways a Sunday. All right. But you're probably like, Gringo, give me an example. Shit, yeah, let's give you an example. Here we go. From International Living, I love this. Lipitor. We've all heard of Lipitor, right? It's the cholesterol drug. It's the drug that if you got high cholesterol, take this so your heart doesn't stop. All right? So here we go. Lipitor is $436 cheaper in Mexico or 28 times cheaper than in the United States. I can vouch for that. It is. Think about that. Lipitor. This is a drug which I don't know how many thousands, maybe even 1 million or so, millions of Americans are on. I mean, it's Lipitor. It's like the Coca-Cola of drugs, okay? It's just how many people are on this thing for high cholesterol because, let's face it, high cholesterol is a thing in the United States. It's a thing down here too. We all like to eat. It's okay. So we take our Lipitor and hopefully our cholesterol goes down and we don't just, seize up one day, but I mean, imagine that. You in the United States, if I need Lipitor and I want to go to the pharmacy, I am paying 28 times cheaper than you. And I'm only a few thousand miles away. Imagine how cheap it is in other countries, Eastern Europe, Asia, things like that. Okay. They're just saying Mexico. All right. And by the way, if I need Lipitor, I just walk into the pharmacy and go, give me some Lipitor. And they're like, yeah. Like, here. I'm like, okay. Because pharmacies down here are a friggin' blast. By the way, you get stuff in pharmacy, you talk about insulin, they sell it off the shelf here. It's crazy. The next time, I have to ask permission because they get very sensitive about this. I will take a video next time I go into a pharmacy, okay? And again, they are everywhere. There's big pharmacy chains everywhere. And they're awesome, like I said, because you can get your prescription meds. You can also get a bag of Funyuns, a Snickers bar, a couple bottles of soda, maybe a keg of water, and some tobacco. Like, it's a party. Like, it's a party in that pharmacy. Anyways, so you go in, and there's insulin right there, and it's wicked cheap. Because I remember, you guys are paying like hundreds, and it's out of control raging, right? It's like, here, for $5, and I'm not using the pesos, I'm just converting in my head. For $5, here's your weekly insulin. And there it is. You want penicillin, you got the flu, you could take, I'm allergic to penicillin. I can't take penicillin. But if I could, and I needed penicillin because I got some really bad flu and I want some antibiotics, right? I just walk in and I can take off of the shelf the preloaded syringe of penicillin. The preloaded syringe, you heard me correctly. The preloaded syringe of penicillin, I pay for it, I walk out, and I have two choices then. I can either man up, stick it in my ass myself, or I can go pay somebody who's authorized and trained to stick it in me for me. Sounds weird, but it's really cheap. But that's what we do down here. My wife used to tell me stories all the time when she was a kid. Yep, they were sick. So they go to the pharmacy. Oh, they have the flu. Here's your penicillin. Boop. Easy. No doctor's visit. No, just boop. 5, cheap. It was awesome. It was great, right? All right, so that's Lipitor. Glucophage, right? This is a high blood sugar for type 2 diabetes. Yeah, type 2 diabetes. Not much of that in the United States, right? Right? That's not an epidemic in the United States, but it's $22 cheaper in Costa Rica, or more than 2 times cheaper than the US. Why? Who knows, right? Because you guys are getting gouged. Ventolin is $55 cheaper in Panama, or 6.5 times cheaper than in the United States. And Ventolin is for bronchospasms, to prevent bronchiospasms. So, breathing, that's important. Synthroid. Okay, here's one that hits close to home. Used in the treatment of hypothyroidism and enlarged thyroid glands and thyroid cancer, which is something that is very prevalent in the United States. Extremely One of you, everybody who watches the video knows somebody who has an issue with their thyroid. So here you go, Synthroid, which, by the way, a year ago was taken off of a lot of insurance companies' preferred drug listing, and you had to pay full price. They weren't covering it. I had to call and be like, hey, I need this covered because you've been covering a lot. Had to fight and get an exemption. Okay, but Synthroid is $129 cheaper in Vietnam and 63 times cheaper. 63 times cheaper than the U.S. 63. That's ridiculous for this drug. For this drug that a lot of people need. A lot of people need in the United States. Nexium. We've all heard of Nexium. That's the acid reflux thing, the heartburn, whatnot. All right. Ulcers, inflammation, esophagus. Right. $100 cheaper in Thailand, or 4 times cheaper than the United States. Okay, and he again, here's the same stuff that we just talked about, right? Lipitor, $4.52 in the U.S., $15.87 for 30 tablets in Mexico. All right, again, 40. Here's it's just an amazing comparison. Here's the Synthroid. You're paying $131, almost $132 for 100 tablets. If that price has probably gone up since this report. In Vietnam, you're paying $2. $2. Why? Because Americans are getting screwed. It's not like they can, we need to, we spend a lot of money on research and development and this, whatnot. Yeah, but you also give your guys, $100 million bonuses every year. So, I don't know. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining, okay? This is the way it is. And this has got to change. This is ridiculous. This type of pricing is ridiculous for Americans. And guess what? I know you're probably thinking, why do you care? You live in Mexico. Because I'm American. I got people who live in America. I love America. I love my country. I may live down here, but I don't think it's fair for what's going on to you people, right? But if you want to come down to Mexico and buy your drugs, hey, you can do that. I mean, if you come to Mexico, just go to a regular pharmacy. Go to a regular, established pharmacy, right? What do I mean by that? You can walk down the street and there's this little mom and pop window opens up and you're like, what's this? You guys selling candy bars or something? Nope. Selling prescription medication. And you're like, really? Don't do that. Don't take it from there because they found out that a lot of this stuff is laced with fentanyl. All right. Because it's not being made by the actual manufacturer. It's counterfeit. So, but if you do come down, whether it's the Guadalajara or whatever pharmacies, you'll see them. The Buenavitas pharmacies, you'll see like they look like actual pharmacies with real pharmacists. They look like you walk in, there's aisles, there's tiled floor. You'll see it. It's fine. You'll get it. You'll pick it up. All right. But if you need, and you don't want to spend that kind of money, and you just come on over the border, come south of the border. Let's buy like this, and I won't tell you what the brand name is because I'm not advertising. Okay. This is my friend. This is my favorite of all. Now, when I was in the United States, I suffered from migraines and headaches and all sorts of stuff due to, whatever reason. And so I used to take Excedrin. Used to love it, right? Why? Because it's loaded with caffeine and pain medicine, right? You should boom, take a few, gone. This stuff, this is the Mexican version of Excedrin, but it makes Excedrin look like Pop Rocks. Okay, 2 of these, you see it in the future. It's great. No matter what's wrong, I got a headache, I take 2 of those. I got a backache, I take 2 of those. I feel depressed, I take 2 of those. I don't know, I can't think of what to do next. I take 2 of those, right? Those things are great. They are loaded. It's like taking 4 cups of coffee and some pain reliever. You're good to go for like 12 hours. But for this, a box of these, which they're made by a very reputable company, Bayer, which is, a very giant prescription. For a box of these, I pay for I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for 15 to 20 of these, I pay $1 US. $1 US. I don't know what you pay for Excedrin now. I pay $1 for these things, and they're great. Is Donald Trump right to attack prescription drug manufacturers? Hell yeah. Is this executive order a good thing? Hell yeah. Do the markets not going to like this? No. Are the companies not going to like this? No. Are they going to be lobbying against this like crazy? You betcha. Is it going to be a fight in Congress because pharmaceutical companies put a lot of money and donations towards the elections of these people? Yeah, it's going to be a fight. This one's going to be a fight, folks. We're talking millions of dollars at stake here. Millions. People don't like to lose millions. All right. But yeah, it's a good idea. It's about time. And, but yeah, I mean, it's a reality. This is the reality that you're living in. And he's really, of the things that I've complained about, and I had a lot of complaints about this man over the last couple days. Some of the things he did. All right. I like to call balls and strikes. Right. I'm not a zealot, and I'm not a hater. So I like to call balls and strikes. I like to call it like I see it. This is one of those things that's like, it's about time. It's about time someone just pointed at the pharmaceutical companies and said, stop screwing Americans on this shit. So regardless, Republican, Democrat, whatever policy you want to call it, they shouldn't be charging you this much money. And if you can argue that all you want, if you hate Trump so much that you want to argue against prescription drug costs, okay, that's fine by me.